Alright, we should be live now. Let me know if you guys are getting anything yet. Could still be buffering. Mostly waiting for people to interact with me. Nothing. Uh-oh. Alright, well. Hey everyone, Corey from Aquarium Co-op, the same spiel as always. And today is a live Q&A session, so hopefully you've saved up some good questions and things like that. And I'll answer about anything, I think. So I'm just going to start reading some of the questions and answering and firing off. And as more people join, I'm sure this chat will get scrolling pretty quickly. And yeah. Oh, video and audio are not synced. Let me work on that. I wonder how we can change the video lagging. Let me see if I can change settings real quick here. See, this is the part I was afraid of, is having problems with this. No good on video lag. Alright, just give me a second here, guys, trying to look at settings. And the problem is it's really hard to watch yourself real time in your own house because you're already uploading and streaming, and if you watch on another computer you don't get real time info, so I'd have to like just ask people like I'm doing right now. In theory I can lower the resolution, and I am trying to do that. That is one of the hardest parts, because the problem is I have to actually change settings on the broadcasting software and then on YouTube at the same time, and there's a billion settings to choose from. And it is, I think it's an encoding issue here. Well, I haven't changed anything yet, so hopefully it's just going to catch up here, but I'm trying to figure out where I can make an... So it's, that's weird. So it's saying that my my stream is only okay, which when I checked it literally 30 minutes ago, before I went live, it rated my status as great, you know. So let's see here. I can do that. I can turn on a little broadcast alert thing while I'm fixing this. Bear with me, guys. It's got to be on my encoder side. But for some reason, it's not letting me change. I might have to stop the stream and restart it to get it let me change. Yes, throw a wrench at him. If only I knew how long that... If we could time out people for like 5 seconds, I would do it. Yeah, this is not my favorite time right now. Digging through all the broadcasting settings. Alright, gotta ask Google how to do this. Yes, there is more goldfish behind me. I can sit to the side. You guys can, well, probably the wrong side. Probably need to sit to this side while I'm working on this. You guys can at least watch the goldfish, hopefully. Oh, I can't even see the screen I'm filming now. Oh, so I think it's a scene setting. Alright, I'm getting closer, I swear. That didn't seem to work. Removing that scene. Aha, I'm figuring it out, I think. So, are we getting any better now? That's what I want to know. I changed the setting. Is it better? Is it not? The big one's mopey mostly. I swear he just mopes around, even with the new friends. So. Am I still... Okay, I am back. Good. Good. There's a little bit of lag between me doing settings and you guys, so it's probably like... It looks like it's about a 15-second delay or so, and that's probably just it going through the internet. Seems to be the same. Alright, well, I can keep playing with a couple little settings here. You guys can also... I guess you could ask me some questions, like... Just don't ask me how to do a live stream, because apparently I don't know. Alright, let's see here. If I can... Got the right camera I'm filming on. Audio input device. Yes, that might help. Well, even... Oh, audio's fine. Maybe I configure. Alright, well, let's just try this, because I don't know that I can make it much better on the fly, so... Yeah, that's the craziest thing to me, is how many subscribers are from around the world. I assume mostly it's USA people, but it's actually hard to help people in Puerto Rico and UK and stuff like that, because when I give a recommendation, they can't get it. And, you know, so I don't know how to help those people. So how I got into fish, I was at a buddy's house. So I used to be really into gaming. Like, I would play Magic the Gathering, I would play World of Warcraft, stuff like that. Very high-level competitive stuff. I'm a very competitive guy. And that was we were kind of burning... oh, is there a big echo now? Alright, well, I know what's happening. Alright, in theory, let me know when this reverts back to normal, and then I'll continue with that question. Sorry, I was trying to make audio better by running it through the broadcaster thing, and I was like, yeah, let's click that setting. That makes sense, and it probably started capturing audio twice, which gave the echo. So now I know don't do that. Yeah, you get them with the big head. Perfect, echo's gone. That's what I want to hear. Yes, make fun of my technical skills because there's nothing really else to do yet. So anyway, back to how I got into the hobby. Big gamer, kind of was getting burnt out, sitting at a buddy's house. He had a 72-gallon Bowfront tank, and you know, I'm just sitting there and I asked him, like, how much work does that take? So it was fully planted, it had lots of rummy-nose tetras, and it was all low-light plants, but I didn't know it at the time. And, you know, I didn't know, but he's like, oh, I water change that thing like once every 3 months. And I go, really? I thought they were a ton of work, because when I was growing up, my aunt only had like a 10-gallon tank with goldfish in it, and the water was always green, and that was my view of fish keeping, right? So, uh, he says like, yeah, it's not too much work. So then I think like within a week or two, like I was working a lot at the time, and I just had way too much money. And so like a week or two later, I was telling my then girlfriend, now wife, I think I'm gonna get a fish tank, and she just said, whatever you do, make sure you don't get too big of one. And I said, oh, don't worry, I won't. And so we go to a pet store, and I bought a complete setup, the biggest tank they had, which was only a 65 gallon, and we put it in the bedroom, and it was upstairs. And she comes home and she was pissed, like livid. That would have been the closest time me and my wife had ever come to really getting in like a bad fight, was that. And but it eventually got better. And now I still make the joke, I would say monthly, that it's not even that big of a tank, because it was still a 65 gallon was still a small tank. I just kept getting bigger tanks from then on. And well, I had way too much money because I was working tons of overtime. I used to be in the medical auction field, where I would go and deliver auctions, set people up that were getting out of the hospital, and you had to work all hours of the night. And if you're accruing all this overtime and this money, I mean, there's days where I just barely slept. What do you do with the money? Like, you can't really go out and watch movies because you're on call, right? So the minute you step into a movie theater, you get called, you got to go to work. And so I just started throwing tons of money at fish. And it was also half the reason why I didn't do much of the gaming anymore, is I would just always have to leave in the middle of events and things like that. So, let's see, what else? It was the Arapiuma video. When's that coming out? I'd have to look at the schedule. It could be coming out within this week. I'm not sure, but I went and saw the Osaka Aquarium, and unfortunately, I'm gonna spoil this right now. The aquariums were too small for the Arapiuma, in my opinion. But you'll get to see it all, and it's not the best video because there's me and a billion other tourists, and they're all talking, and kids are screaming, going, look at that one, that type of thing. So, well, you may have heard someone say they have too much money, but I only believe you need as much money to do what you want to do. And so, like, if I want to play out my garden with my ponds, and I have enough money to do that, I've got too much money if I'm wasting it, So, yeah, that's too much work, not enough time off. I probably had too much work and not enough time off is really what it was. But the wife is a tolerant lady. That is for dang sure. She, at one point when we were renting, we kind of got together, and I got my first aquarium in that house, and that was where I built my first fish room. So I turned the garage into a fish room. We had 50 tanks there. I had, I don't even know, like 5 or 6 tanks in the living room, and we had taken out a love seat. And basically there was like a couch for us, there was a computer desk where I was doing work and stuff like that, and then a bunch of aquariums. And, but then we moved houses again, and then again to this one, we bought this house, and now I've got my whole 1,500 square foot building to do tanks and this stuff, so that's what I'm doing. Let's see. I would love to do more, not necessarily Japan videos, but I do want to visit, like Singapore. I want to visit, I'm trying to think of where, like Vietnam, or not Vietnam, God, I can't even think. I want to visit China as well, like the fish market. So I want to branch out and not just do more Japan stuff, even though I'm going back to Japan, it looks like in November, to pick out koi and stuff with koi.com, but more videos to come. I personally don't think I've ever owned a flower horn. I got really into them for a little while, but I was super trying hard to find a female Super Red Texas. I don't like the big knot on the head. Well, that's not true. Like, I like it on a frontosa where it's big but not huge, and I really like the Super Red Texas, but I liked the sloped nose more like a snook than I did the big knock on the head. So, yeah. My oldest fish, I ended up selling it actually at the store. Someone kind of made me some offers I couldn't refuse. So it was my giant pack of clown loaches. I had the biggest one named Meatloaf. Been in my care for a long time. I'm trying to think of. I'm not a guy that gets attached to fish, So like they're pets to me. But the longest one would have been my giant Mabu puffer, probably 5 or 6 years. Well, I had the clown loaches longer than that, but. Trying to think of other fish that I've kept a long time. Being that I'm a breeder, I breed lots of fish, and they're just, I don't know, they're not pets in the same way that like my dogs are. But the puffers tend to be long-lived for me, that I keep a long time. And then back when I was into monster fish, I had quite a few big catfish and clown loaches and things like that that I kept for a very long time. Let's see. So do I stress out about power outages? Not really. So everyone kind of thinks it's super scary, but I've worked for a store and we went through a lot of them. And really, I don't even start worrying about it till the power's been out for 8 hours. And I don't worry about oxygen till it's been 24 hours, usually. And then same thing for like temperature and things like that. What I didn't realize, working for other stores, now working for my own, or not working for my own store, but owning my own store, was that I'm not afraid of the fish dying. That's super easy. I was totally ready for that. But I was not ready for all the refrigerators and freezers that I have. Because at the store, I've got 2 refrigerators and 2 freezers. And after the power had been out for a day, they were starting to get cold, right? Like, because they're not being frozen. And I had to hook up generators to that, but that's where I was like, wow, I could lose thousands of dollars there. The fish I can handle, but that I was not ready for, because I was ready to, I could run power inverters into my car and run the air system, and I had a generator going for the heat, but I did not anticipate running 4 different, basically refrigerators / freezers at the same time. Now I'm ready for that, but in old stores and stuff like that, most people only run like 1, so it wasn't a big deal. Let's see here. Yes, meatloaf. So the fish that I keep for a long time, I give funny names to. Like my big puffer was Hank. I had Meatloaf. The wife every once in a while names a fish, which I seem to be really good at killing fish that she names, because it's whatever she actually likes somehow ends up dying, like some freak accident or something like that. And to be fair, she's a very, like, what is it called? I don't know, just like sympathetic person. And so we're always saving fish. Like, that's one thing I can't do. I can't go to another fish store. She can't even come into my fish store, because if there's any fish that is missing an eye, has a bent fin or a bent back or something like that, we instantly have to take it home and save it forever. And that becomes a hard thing to do when you've got all these kind of wonky fish. Especially, she loves, goldfish that have problems. So, yeah. So let's see. Let's find some other... Oh, well, what happens at 8 hours with a power outage? Mostly then you just start worrying about oxygen content in the water. So like at my store, if I didn't have power and I didn't have a generator, I would start changing some water with cold water just to bring in some aeration. Or I would use a cup and kind of aerate the water if I really had to, which I'd have to have all employees there to be aerating the water manually. But you just start worrying about oxygen for the fish. And then once power does come back on, most people forget this, you've killed most of your bacteria at that point, because in an aquarium, it's mostly bacteria using the oxygen, not the fish. So when the fish are in distress, usually the bacteria has already been dying off quite a bit, and so you really want to be careful and do extra water changes when the power does come back on. So breeding fish outside, now we can get to a topic I really love. Besides live bearers, which we should be breeding live bearers, that's what I love, but like last night, in fact, I just put out longfin white clouds. They're great. Most Danios are cool weather tolerant. I recently saw someone in some foreign country, like I want to say it was Sweden or something, or Poland or something like that, had kept salt and peppercorns outside year round, and even though it froze over and things like that. So I'm kind of excited to try something like that. For just fish looking amazing. If you put rainbows out and they get bugs and sunlight, they look amazing when they come back in once it's kind of fall again, and they'll never be as bright as they were outside. And then that first month inside your house. So if you want to get really good pictures of rainbow fish and stuff like that, put them outside, let them take in that vitamin D from the sun, all those bugs, and bring them inside and take some pictures. Amazing. What else can you do outside? Like, I know there's some subtropical apistos. Like, some people do that in California year-round. It really depends on your climate, on what you're going to be able to do. But I would say everything gets easier to breed with more space. And so the more space you have, like Celestial Pearl Danios, like they just make more. Things like that, because it's a space issue. In our tiny aquariums, we don't have the space. Let's see. So Repashy, my thoughts on that. I think it's an amazing food. I love it. I need to feed more of it. I'm just too lazy to make it, or I'm too busy to make it. And so in a perfect world, I would feed Repashy every day as one of my feedings, along with frozen foods and my auto feeders and everything like that. And it's a store. We do it. We don't do it as much as we should, and it's a time thing. But when the store was like newer and I had more time, like when it was just me, my fish store, and people that would wander in, I fed a lot of Repashy. Now, like I think yesterday we had, we're open for 8 hours, we're open Memorial Day, and we had 80 transactions. And so that means me and one other employee, Allie, who's in the comments here, we go through 80 transactions, and that means that 8 hours, that's 10 per hour, and that means we split up between 2 people. We're handling 5 people an hour, and so we're diagnosing people's problems, getting the fish they need, and everything like that at about, about 10 minutes per transaction, because we really want to do, the best job. And so we did get to feed before the store opened, and we fed, when there's a pocket of downtime, but it can be hard even just to feed fish at the fish store when we're busy. So someone's asking me about, Al Commander's asking me the best place to open fish stores, whether it's freshwater, saltwater, coral. On the East Coast, saltwater is way bigger than here's on the West Coast. Like at least in Washington, Seattle, or saltwater is almost non-existent. And, we're kind of more planted over here. And then you've got the Midwest, that tends to be very heavy cichlid country. And there's always going to be, but there's plant people too, and there's saltwater people too, yes, but there's always going to be dominant demographics, if you will. And so, like, even here in Washington, we've kind of got Seattle and northward is all planted tank people. Below Seattle tends to be cichlid people. And the reason why, or at least from what I can gather from information, is that down below Seattle, there's a lot of military bases. And in general, younger males that tend to make up the military tend to be an aggressive fish. And so they sell a ton. And there's a business that makes all their living off of basically selling a giant fish tank to someone. They're here for 2 years, they're stationed, then they sell it back to the store and move somewhere, and they just keep reselling those same tanks. It's kind of hilarious, but it's a perfect business model. So when you're looking to put in a fish store, analyze the market, what's around, and just focus on the thing that's popular. So like planted tanks are popular in my area, so that's all I do. I throw in some goldfish and some rare stuff too, but I don't carry African cichlids, South American cichlids, I'm trying to think of other things, saltwater, where most of the other stores do, but when you diversify, you tend to do not as well as if you were just focusing on one thing. So like Allie, my employee, we don't have to teach her saltwater, and we don't have to teach her cats and dogs and birds and all the other things. All she's got to know is freshwater planted tanks, which she already does know, so it works out nice. But when you're looking to put something in, I would say look for where the PetSmarts and Petcos are. And a lot of people tell you, stay away from them. I would tell you, get as close to them as you can, because they've spent lots of money to figure out the perfect place to put a fish store, or their store. And I literally would pay for a PetSmart or Petco to move into my complex right now. They actually have contracts with where they lease that doesn't allow a guy like me to move in, because they know we will steal so much aquatic business from them that they don't want that. They don't want us to even be in view. And, we already do get a lot of customers from PetSmarts and Petcos just because we're friendly to the employees that work there, and we just tell them, you know what, if you guys don't have something, we can help them, just send them our way. And, so the other thing you might want to take into account when you're building a fish store somewhere is, do you have any local wholesalers? How good are they? And then how are you going to get your stuff? Like, in the Midwest, you're like the furthest you could be from, let's say, LAX, where you're going to get all your corals and stuff like that. But you're also right in the middle of cichlid, town, where all those local breeders of cichlids are going to be very easy. Likewise, if you're in the Midwest, it's easier to get live brine shrimp from Florida, whereas, like, I'm in Washington, I could not be further away, and so that's why I can't sell live brines. It costs too much. And, so you got to look at the regional things of what you can use to your advantage. So yes, you'll have local breeders for cichlids, that'll also drive the price down a little bit, and just develop your business plan based on that. And I would say don't put a fish store where there's never been a fish store before, because there's too much risk. You're much better off opening up next door to another fish store. You can probably make that work every time. So that's my thoughts on there, and I could do tons of videos on opening a fish store. But yes, we do have goldfish in the background here. There's, I've added some, basically some Arandas that were just at the shop. We've got some black moors, and no big lunkers yet. I just haven't brought them home. And not having display tanks, I just don't have time for it. Like everyone probably wants to see the custom tank that's sitting in my living room, except the water's a little cloudy right now. I don't have great lighting for it. I haven't hooked up the Eheim filter they sent to me yet, so it's a couple of sponge filters, and there's one long fin bristlenose plecostomus, just like we've got in this tank somewhere back here, and that's it. And I still haven't decided what I want to do. As of a week ago, I wanted to put about 30 black ghost knives in there and just have that be rad. And then before that, I wanted clown loaches. And then this time I thought maybe, I was thinking about this yesterday, maybe I breed all these fish outside, like longfin white clouds and maybe some danios and stuff like that and plants, and show you guys all how to do that, and then stock that tank with nothing but fish I bred. I thought that would be really cool. But it mostly sits there doing nothing, and so I've got display tanks at the store, and I do mean to show those off, and that will come up, but yeah, that's my view on display tanks, is it's a time thing. So selling fish to a store, the recommendation is try and find out how much it costs wholesale, and if you can't find that out, start at a third, but have some wiggle room there, because some fish, like a guppy, sells for 50 cents wholesale, but sells for maybe $2, $3, $4, $5, depending on where in the world you are. And so no one's going to pay you $2 for that guppy, but you got to kind of just, and the longer you do it, the more you'll know, and the more you establish a relationship with a store, they'll just tell you those things. So let's see here, lots of oh, my voice at half speed. Yeah, what do I sound like? I don't even know. Like, I probably just sound very slow and deep. Let's see, what else? Do I like Wayne from Wayne's Fish World? I've watched it, and I only stumbled upon his probably, I want to say 5-6 weeks ago. I don't watch it as much as I probably would, because he mixes in saltwater stuff like that. It's a huge turnoff to me on a channel when I gotta weed through saltwater stuff, because I'm just not into it. Like, I've done it in the past, but I'm always disappointed, and probably just like you guys are, whatever you're into, when something comes out and you're like, dang it, he put out a video on this. Like, I don't breed fish. This is horrible. So that's why I try and do multiple different things every week, so that it's not just like, oh, here's a week of crap I don't like. But, I do watch Wayne's Fish World stuff. I actually don't have that much time to watch that many videos. I try to watch more of the, I guess, people that are in my chat channel, because, like, someone will leave a comment, and then I'll just be like, I wonder if they're doing anything. And I just click on their name, and then I get to watch their videos, and I go, oh, so that's what they're doing. That's why they're asking this question, and I can, interact with them that way. But a lot of the big channels I watch purely from, I would say, a competitor standpoint. Like, I want to know what Dustin's Fish Tank's doing. I want to know what ADU Aquascaping's doing. Following Wayne, I follow Joey, I follow Rachel O'Leary. There's a lot of people I follow, and one, I want to see what they're doing. Two, maybe they've got great ideas. Like, like I can attribute Rachel O'Leary. She bought the new microphone, and that made me buy a new microphone. And then it turned out I didn't like that microphone that much, so I bought another new microphone. But because I watched them, that helped me get motivated. You know what? I should step up my audio game, because I saw her audio game step up. She went from using the onboard mic to that Rode mic, and it really improved audio quality for her. And I go, man, that was such a huge difference. I should be trying to make that difference too. So I do watch a lot of stuff, but I try to watch smaller channels just because they're typically doing stuff I want to see. Like, there's some hydroponic channels I watch, and they approach things from a different way. So yeah. Oh, that's a great question. Where does Aquarium Co-op come from? Let me start by saying the biggest mistake I've ever made in starting a fish store was naming my store Aquarium Co-op. And where it came from was, so I was working at a store, and I wanted to do my own store, but I wanted to do everything better. And what was killing me is, at the time, there was an alliance between all the fish stores. that they said, we won't pay anyone for cash for their fish, and so we'll just give them credit. And so they all banded together, and because no one gave way and gave cash, it basically killed the breeding community. And at the time, I was in charge of the breeder program for the Greater Seattle Aquarium Society. And so my goal was to make a store that would buy from breeders and support the locals as much as I could. And the other things I wanted to do is I want to be green about it. So like the bags that I put dry goods in, they're oxo-degradable, so they break down with oxygen and sunlight. Do they cost 20 times as much as a normal bag? Yes, definitely. But that's part of my vision. Almost everything in the store, when you're looking at the wood and stuff like that, it's all either reclaimed lumber or metal, or it's sustainable. So, you know, that cost me way more to do, but that was my vision. My vision is I don't want to be horrible on the environment. I want to bring good fish to the customers, and I thought buying from local breeders did that the best. And I wanted the organic feel. So like when you go into a co-op grocery store, and this is where I stole this mentality from, you basically know there's going to be local products, they're going to be sustainable, it might cost you a little more, but it should be very good quality. And so my thought, while I was doing research also, I know I wanted my store to start with an A, because A shows up in the phone book first, it tends to show up on any list. Like on Yelp, if you type in fish store, it might sort them by alphabetical. I would be there with an A. So I know I wanted to start with an A. I wanted to give that co-op feel, so I decided Aquarium Co-op. And now what I know is horrible idea, because I get calls a few times a week with people, all they say is this: how long is your wait list? And I go, my wait list for what? You know, until I can get my kid in there. And I go, what do you mean? Like, we're a retail store. And they say, oh, you're not a co-op preschool? So now co-op is just, everyone thinks of a preschool now. They don't even think of a co-op grocery store or anything like that. Also, I have to explain at least once a day when people go, well, what's an aquarium co-op? Do I have to buy a membership? Do I have to do this? And really I just come back with, well, it's just a good retail store. We try to be sustainable. We've got, you know, some organic fish foods. We've got locally produced things as well. And, you know, they get the idea, but technically, you know, a co-op is just something owned by 5 or more people. So, you know, and 5 people don't own the co-op. So that's how I got that name. If I could change it, I probably would, because it would have been way better to be Corey's Aquariums or something like that than Aquarium Co-op, because it wouldn't have led to all the questions. So, well, I'm glad that other people like that I'm environmentally friendly. I try to be as much as I can, and my employees hate some of it because, like, we get so many shipments in. Like, when you guys watch me unload those 5 styrofoam boxes of fish, like, that was just one day. We got 4 other shipments that week. And so I get all these styrofoam boxes, and I refuse to throw them away. And so I might stack up 50, 60 of them, and then I basically strong arm the local wholesalers and make them take them. I go, look, I'll buy $200 or $300 worth of fish from you. You're going to take these boxes, though, because I don't want to throw them away. And the closest recycling center for styrofoam is like 2 hours away. So I try to give them away to customers and hobbyists as much as I can if they'll reuse them. I give them away, like during summer right now, we try and give them away for people going camping instead of going to buy one at the grocery store, stuff like that. Because I would literally just fill dumpsters with styrofoam, and I can't sleep at night knowing that I'm doing that all the time. So, yeah. Let's see, I'm going to get a drink of water. Let's see here. I do love Corridoras. So yes, Corey's Aquariums would be, you know, I do already have a lot of Corridoras and catfish in the store, but it would have made more sense. But if I ever sold the business, Corey's Aquarium sounds weird. And, yeah. So, let's see here. So vacation season, okay, by Javier. If it's under a week, and your fish aren't aggressive, so let's say you don't have big Central and South American cichlids or puffers or something that's aggressive, if it's under a week, my recommendation is don't do anything. Don't feed, don't water change. For sure, don't feed them extra before you leave, and when you get back, don't feed them extra. Fish in general can live off very tiny amounts of food, and that's why when you see wild-caught fish, they're already always emaciated. They live off very small things. Now, you could have a neighbor or a family member feed, and if you're gonna do that, put it in a pill container where it's got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, all those days, and put the exact amount of food in there. But you also got to really instruct them, only feed the day they show up. Because what happens if you hire me, or I'm your friend and I come over and I'll feed them every day, don't worry about it, and I skip tomorrow, you don't want me on Wednesday or Thursday or whatever feeding 2 days worth of food. So under 7 days, and they're not aggressive, go ahead and just leave them. Over that, I would really recommend getting Eheim auto feeders and getting your fish onto eating dry foods. Now, some people say, well, my discus don't eat it. It's like, well, we should be training them to do that. And same with the aggressive fish, like puffers would be very difficult. You can't really auto feed those things. And so for a puffer, I might have someone come in once or twice and have a baggie of frozen clams and just dump this frozen clams in there. But a lot of times we get ourselves into trouble trying to make it so that the fish don't suffer. We end up killing a bunch of fish or tanks go bad, when in reality, if we did nothing, they would be fine. Like, most fish, people don't realize, from the time they're collected in the wild to the time they get to a store, it's been 2 weeks and they've never been fed. So, like, they just do that all the time. Now, if you had baby fry, like Dean's fish room, he's got that problem. He goes out of town, and his fry, if they don't get fed for a day or two, they just die. And he just has losses when he has to do that. So, devise a plan and get it working way before you go. If you go on Friday, you should have had this plan 2-3 weeks ago and been testing it out. Get that neighbor to come and feed your fish a week before you leave so they can see exactly how to do it. You stand there with them, you talk about it, and you can show them how important it is to do it correctly. So Dominic and Katz, I actually answered that earlier in the stream, so you can watch that again, but basically my buddy Ben got me into it, and I only get overzealous about things, so I'm either not interested at all, or I'm so interested that it drives everyone else nuts when it comes to almost anything in my life. So, yeah. Let's see here. You're totally right, Mr. Super. You can't rename an established business. All it does is make you look bad. Like, oh, I wonder what they did shady to rename their name. Like, they must have had a horrible reputation or something like that. So, but like, I have considered opening more stores, and there's some stores that maybe I would buy and things like that, and so I've thought, do I keep their name? Do I rename it? Like, do I make it Aquarium Co-op number 2? Or do I go, let me get away from the Aquarium Co-op brand? But now that I have the YouTube channel and stuff, I feel like the Aquarium Co-op brand is a thing, and the more stuff I associate it with, the better it would be, so that's why I keep the name for now. Lots of buffering going. Let me take a look and see if anything on my end, like what's it show on the stream for me. Shows my stream is good, so maybe it's your connection or something like that. The problem is, with the internet, I have Comcast. If like a ton of people around me start downloading movies and stuff, it might make it hard for my stream. But in the middle of the night when I was testing this, I was getting way higher numbers. But also now it's in the middle of the day, so yeah. Let's see what else. What's my favorite fish food for the money? Without a doubt, it would be Hikari frozen, and it's because it feeds clean. It's relatively cheap, and you should be able to strong-arm your local fish store by buying 12 packs at a time to get it lower. Like, I sell 12 counts of frozen bloodworms for $36, which is $3 a package. But bar none, frozen foods of Hikari, way good for the price. Now, there's some things like San Francisco Bay bloodworms, terrible. I hate those. Like, those are bad. If I had to pick one dry food for money to good ratio, if we're factoring in the money, I would say it's Hikari again. If we're not factoring in money, I probably would feed Sarah Foods nonstop. Like, I do feed a lot of Sarah Foods, but if money's no object, Sarah Foods in general, very high quality. I still like frozen better. And my metric on food is this. And I fight, so not that I'm calling out Northfin's fish food or anything like that, but they, for instance, they wanted me to use them and help promote them and sell it in my store. That was their main thing. They wanted me to sell it in their store. And why I don't is anytime a food costs more than a live food, I don't think it's worth it. So, like, I think I was comparing their krill. Like, it was a pound of krill was like $30 that I had to retail it for. I can retail a pound of live blackworms for less than that. So when I can sell live foods for cheaper than the dry food, I feel like it's not good for my customers. And so I myself haven't used the food, so I have no idea if it is amazing or terrible. Like, I have no idea. So it could be the best food in the world, but I haven't given it a try because the threshold is so high. Now, someone like Dean has used their foods, and he went and bought them in Canada, like a year ago or something like that. And he tested them out in his fish room. He came back and told me, I don't think they're worth the money they're getting. It's a good food, but it's not worth that money. And I trust someone like his opinion because he's a guy like me, a breeder. So I'm sure North Fin food is good, but does it match the price? I don't know. Like, if I can buy a pound of live blackworms or a pound of krill, and I'm feeding clown loaches and things like that, I'd much rather have the live blackworms. So that's my take on different food levels. And there's always, like, every manufacturer makes something really good and something makes something really bad. So you got to pick and choose the things you want to use, the price points you want to do, and what your fish like. You can have fish and I can have fish, the same fish, but they like different foods. Just like you have a dog and I have a dog, and your dog loves chicken, my dog hates chicken, or whatever. So let's see here. No problem, Richard. I try to make videos, and hopefully they just help everyone. And what doesn't help you, move on. It helps someone. So I've actually been to the UK when I was young. I went to Wolverhampton and London and things like that, and that's where I found my love. So you guys think I love Mexican food? It pales in comparison to my love for Indian food. I actually got married at an Indian restaurant. That's how much I love Indian food. And curry and tikka masala, oh man. And I had the best tikka masala sandwich ever in the UK, and I think about that pretty much once a week, and that was like 20 years ago. Well, not 20, well, almost, but so I love Indian food, but Indian food's not as common here. Like, there's no drive-through, there's no, like, the closest Indian place from me right now that I like to eat at is about an hour, so, yeah. Let's see. Have I ever tasted the food? The only fish food I've ever eaten is rapashi. Didn't kill me, like I'm still here today, but it wasn't awesome. No, that's not true. With a dare with an employee when I first opened the store, we both ate massivore pellets. Tasted a lot like krill. So I've had 2 fish foods now. Let's see. I do eat a lot of tacos, no doubt. Love Indian food. Butter chicken, I definitely eat that too. And I actually saw, like, I was totally Facebook stalking you, David, like, because you gave a good review and then you friended me on Facebook. And I totally saw, like, it was either you left a review or you were just at an Indian place, and I was like, oh man, that guy likes the food I like. Yeah, my wife has that problem too, that sometimes Indian food doesn't like her, so we kind of have to strategically plan. Like, she loves it, but she also loves crazy hot. Like, she'll like, oh, I want infinite star vindaloo and stuff like that, and so it can be hard on her. So we plan, like, oh, we're going to have days off. Like, I could eat curry all day long, every day. It doesn't affect me, but yeah. So, Celebes rainbow fish, I haven't bred them, but they should breed all the other rainbows. Basically, they're going to mop spawn on you, and put a mop in there. They do the nasty. Eggs get on there. You remove the mop to another tank. The fry are going to hatch out, and they're just going to be microscopic, and that's the hardest thing with rainbow fry, is they're so small. So usually you use something called APR, artificial protein rotifers. And you get them with egg kits that you buy online, or if you get stuff from Gary Lang, and I've done that. I've also used green water, but I hate raising rainbows because from the time you have an egg to a sellable fish is like 7 or 8 months. It's forever. But I have done it for some fish that I just couldn't live without, that type of thing. But Dean's pretty good at it. He kind of makes a factory out of it, but in my opinion, it takes too much time to raise them. So I will only do it if I wanted the fish, not to sell the fish. To be fair, yes. Because I haven't eaten krill, I can only know that it smells like krill. So I can't know that massivore tasted like krill, but it definitely smelled like it, and I think that's what it tastes like. Let's see here. So other fish that I would recommend for people to breed, I find killifish are pretty rewarding. They're pretty fun. I really liked breeding like Norman lampi killies, and I've done some of the Gardner eyes and things like that. What other fish do I enjoy? African cichlids are fun. I really enjoy crebensis. If you haven't bred crebensis, do it not for the money, but purely for the like, wow, these guys are badass parents, and they can fight off an entire tank of fish and take them, and they lead them around the tank and feed. So those ones are fun too. I like white clouds a lot just because they're easy to breed. But mostly I'm lazy. Like, I could probably breed things like tiger barbs and some of the other barbs and danios and tetras, but it's so much work that I don't even try. Like, I would rather breed 20 other species in the same amount of work it's going to take me to breed, one tetra or something like that. And that being said, I've never bred a tetra intentionally. Like, I've made a couple emperor tetras and black neons and accidents just from fish being happy in an aquarium. But yeah. Let's see here. Weird. Pickled gourami from Thailand. That sounds kind of awesome. So the guppy pond at the store, I don't have a guppy pond. I have a 360-gallon aquarium that's filled with guppies. And I do plan on doing a video on that. I actually just started working on it a little bit. I kind of let the guppy grass go out of control. And so yeah, I'm kind of getting it ready, because mostly when I'm in the store, the light on that tank is on a timer, it's out, and I just don't film it. But I am going to film it because it's a pretty cool tank. It's got my Mabu puffer in it, and he's not huge yet, but he will be, and that's, I do love Mabu puffers. I love livers, I love puffers. I can love any fish, honestly. Glad for the Apisto love. I love Apistos. I love breeding them. I don't know why, and I love them when they get big and old, when they become like the bulldog face. Like, they just look cool to me. A lot of people don't like that. I think they look their best when they're just big, old, and awesome. Let's see here. Yeah, you're breeding 25 tanks. You're breeding killifish and German blue rams. I've never bred rams intentionally. I'm always put off by the amount of work when it comes to feeding microscopic foods. Like, I hate harvesting. I don't mind culturing. I hate harvesting vinegar eels and things like that. So I'm a lazy breeder. There's no doubt about that, because I'd rather go for, I guess, quantity versus quality on that. Like, I'd rather breed 50 species of fish in my fish room than just have discus and rams going and being a lot of work. Would I ever keep native fish? It's not legal to here in Washington. Like, I can't go collect most things, but I totally would. And what do I've collected some stuff out of Florida, because that was legal to do. I feel like there's something native that, like, I would love to work with the Olympic mud minnow, but legally I can't do it. Like, even in the fish room, I've got some natives, like the, natives as in native to United States, and that would be the Heteranodon formosas. And I've got Florida flagfish at the store. I like those. I don't have them here, but I kind of want to get those going in a pond too. But yeah, I totally would. I've never really done any of the, like, pumpkin seed fish and sunfish. I've caught sunfish, like pygmy sunfish, and given them to another breeder and stuff when I was in Florida, but I didn't play with them. Well, the big guppy tank, it could be a pond. It's 6 foot by 4 foot, so it's 6 feet wide by 4 foot front to back, and only 2 feet tall. And so it's the same as like the ponds I have like out in this room out here. Those big Laguna ponds, same dimensions as that. Yeah. I wouldn't say barbs and tetras are a lot of work to breed. Like, we did it for many years, right? Like, 50s, 60s, 70s. But people were dedicated to breeding fish back then. Now, we don't really separate sexes, but really what you want to do is get some fish, get males and females separated out, feed them for a month, get them really pumped up with food, put them together, they're going to go poof, explode in eggs. Then you got to remove all the parents so they don't eat eggs, and you might have to have a false bottom there to do it. But then, it's the challenge of raising the fry. Like, I've watched people raise up zebra danio fry, and it's like, the amount of work that went into that for such a cheap fish, I would rather just buy the fish. Like, I could breed a guppy on autopilot. It earns me $1. I buy a zebra danio, where that zebra danio took a year to raise. So, but if you're doing it out in a pond where nature's breeding it for you, I'm totally down. And that's what I do like to breed egg scatters is outside. Do I have a lot of European subscribers, Aqualife TV? Well, from the statistics, I would say it's about 90% from the United States, and then 10% sprinkled out through the rest of the world. And some of the highlights I can think of is I know I've got people in the UK, places like Poland, Sweden, Mexico, but it's very small percentages. And even like on like the videos from Japan, even that is mostly United States. And I think it's the way that YouTube works. YouTube tends to show English-speaking videos to native English-speaking countries as opposed to foreign countries. And I think it's harder. Like, it's actually harder for me to find German videos when I want to go find German videos on, let's say, Sarah products or something like that. So, yeah. Let's see. Sunfish are cool, but I've always had to feed them live food. But it was one of my customers breeding them. It says they've got them on dry foods. So you're thinking about getting into koi. What do you recommend for someone just getting into them? If you're just getting into it, I would recommend buying like the pond I have, which is a quarantine pond. It looks like a swimming pool. It's about 1,000 gallons. They're about $400. Called like a Dream Pond. There's a couple different brands. Get that as your quarantine koi pond. Now you can start buying some koi, learning about them, feeding them, and then like when you get serious about it, you go, okay, I'm going to build this ridiculously cool pond. Now you have the pond to quarantine the new fish, so you're not getting, your $20,000 in koi sick. Now, you can take it from a very cheap thing to a very expensive thing. The koi, I just want a koi if you're watching the Aquarium Co-op Facebook page, I want a koi from koi.com on the auction site for $150. Doitsu Kohaku, in my opinion, was a steal. Like, that fish should be worth a lot more. And I'm still negotiating on that other fish in the video that I want, but I got to go pick those up. Well, pick up the one I won, and then hopefully pick up that other one here in the next week or so. I'm just waiting for them to get back to me. They've got shipments coming in. I'm busy working it, so we line up. It's hard, but I would say getting some koi, starting to interact with them, learning if you love them before you build a gigantic pond, and it's easier to convince your wife or family or whoever, like, it's a temporary pond. We'll just set it up. We'll see how it goes. And that's what I would do personally. And then you've got, a great quarantine thing for as you progress into koi. I don't remove outdoor egg scatterers, the parents, after they spawn, because in theory, like, they eat their eggs when we have them in a 10-gallon tank, but if we put them in a 100-gallon tank or a 360-gallon, like some of the ones I've got out there, that's how nature works. Like, we make a bunch of eggs and I swim down the way, and there it goes. And if you have a lot of vegetation, it's hard for them to see. And then if the water turns green, it's actually hard for them to even find their fry. So I love green water, lots of vegetation. And then it's just a matter of getting enough microfood into those ponds to keep those babies growing. I don't sell glowfish at my store. It's mostly, I'm not against the fact that we've changed them. I'm against the fact that they're so weak. Like, you took a zebra danio, which is like one of the hardiest fish on the planet, and made it super duper weak where it dies. That's not right, because it took so much money to basically splice the DNA and get that going that there's not a lot of genetic diversity there. And so that's what I have against it. Like, I don't mind a GFP oxalotl because they seem to be robust and not any weaker than their normal counterpart. But the glow-light tetras, danios, barbs, all that stuff has, in my experience, seemed to be much more frail and fragile than the normal counterpart, and that I don't get behind. So that's the main reason I don't sell it. It's not because I necessarily hate the color or anything like that, which I do tend to like natural colors, but it's that aspect. The glowfish are the ones that are genetically modified, whereas painted fish, I'm also against that, where we're injecting dye or we're keeping the fish in dye so it takes it in. One, because that fades out and it's not fair to the customer. Two, it's hard on the fish and shortens their lifespan. And three, why take a white skirt tetra that's kind of boring and turn it into something that looks cool when we could just sell you a cool fish to begin with? Like, let's not torture an animal to get a pink one when I could sell you, a cardinal tetra, which is beautiful but natural. So, is it easy to sell fish in England as it is America? I feel like it is. I mean, I don't have a hard time selling fish. My hardest time is getting healthy fish and getting more of it. So, I would say that's my hardest. Selling it seems to be easy, because once you have a good-looking fish and that it's healthy, people want to buy it. So, let's see here. What about Dyed Fish? Yeah, terrible. Nature's Camera, great show. Thank you. 14 years old and I have a fish room. And what's my take on that? I say that's insanely awesome. I love it when kids, and not that you're just a kid, you're a teenager now, but I love it when youth is getting into the hobby because, so often we're getting into things that aren't that, but I love it. And like, I love buying fish off kids. Like, if they legitimately have bred a fish, I will pay like retail value. I also do a thing with some of the customers in my store that where kids are breeding it. I'll let them trade 1-for-1 any fish. So if you breed a swordtail, and all of a sudden you come to me and you go, oh, I want to trade these swordtails, and I really want to try a pistos next, I'll make that trade, even though financially it doesn't make any sense. But then they come back in, they've bred those pistos, and now they go, oh, I want to trade it, and I want to try, these guppies, and I make that trade. And so eventually it works out, but I really want to further that hobby and get them breeding and enjoying it instead of going, oh, you want to breed a pistos? Oh, you can't afford it? Too bad. And so I do love it when kids get into it. Yeah, it takes some parents' help, but the kids are legitimately spawning their own fish. I will pretty much do anything for them. Like, I had a kid in my store yesterday. They wanted to set up a betta bowl. I'm against that. But I said, look, if you guys are serious, I will give you used aquariums, stuff like that, to get you started out right. And the mom was like, well, let us think about it. We'll come back to you. And I will help anyone that legitimately wants to further themselves in this hobby the right way. So I commend you being 14 years old and having a fish room. That means you got some help from your parents, at least allowing you to do it. That's awesome. And I would say enjoy it as long as you can, because as you grow up, when you probably hit that 20, 22, and you're out on your own, you realize, like, oh man, it's expensive to have an extra room just for a fish room. So, yeah. Can I do another video about fish shipments that I get on a Sunday? I could, but, so in theory, I'm placing my first time order ever with some fish direct from the Amazon. So there is a transshipper, it lands, and they reship it to me, but it's all going to be wild-caught stuff. I know I've got stingrays, cardinals, neon tetras, lots of different wild-caught cories, all that kind of stuff. And in theory, that should land this Thursday. I was thinking about filming that video because it could be awesome or terrible. Like, being that's all wild-caught, it could be like, oh, watch Corey, he just lost $5,000. Or it could be like, oh man, look at all this cool stuff. I have no idea, it's my first time. And I generally like to capture that kind of stuff when it's my first time, because I don't know what to expect, and it's awesome for me too. So it's the unknown. Let's see here. Your dream is to own a fish store when you're older. If that's honestly your dream, don't spend any time learning about fish. Like when I was in high school, I didn't know I wanted to do fish because I wasn't into fish. I didn't get into fish till I was like 23 or something, or 22. I don't know. 20, but not when I was in high school. I know that. I graduated high school with marketing honors. I ran the little store that was at the school, that kind of stuff. Spend all your time learning about that, participate, and know that if you want to run a business, focus on that. Because keeping fish, not anyone, but let's say there's lots of people who keep fish well, but they don't know business, and that's when stores go out all the time. Learn business, and then yes, happen to know fish, and you'll do really well. That's me. I learned business, lots of business, and then I learned fish, worked out great. If I knew fish and didn't know business, you usually just go out of business. So, let's see. Will 2 male dwarf gouramis get along if they can hide from each other in a 29-gallon tank? In theory, yes. If you've got enough vegetation, they can't even see each other, out of sight, out of mind. There's not going to be enough hormones. They're going to, really find each other and stuff like that through the water. But in general, I would say you're better off just adding, put that male in another tank and get some females for him. Like, that's just a more calm scenario. Just because dwarf gouramis, like the flame gouramis, stuff like that, they tend to be pretty aggressive and they can be hard on other tank mates. So, what do I think of hybrids? I don't have a problem with them so long as it's an obvious hybrid. So, like blood parrots, no problem. Longfin Oscars, yeah, no problem. But when let's say you were to cross a yellow lab and a red zebra accidentally and it gets out into the hobby and just ruins the strain, that I'm not so keen on. So, if it's obvious, I have no problem with it because it can't ruin a species. When it's not obvious, that can be difficult, So, like flower horns, I got no problem with them because everyone knows flower horn's a man-made fish. But if you have a Jack Dempsey that spawned with a firemouth and then you just sell them to a store as Jack Dempsey's, and that's not truthful, and it's not going to be fair to the customers. So that I do have a problem with. Um, so, looking for more questions here. Quick question. Are 8 sponge filters enough for a 100-gallon tank with ancestors and cories? I would say yes, more than enough. I bet you one decent-sized sponge would handle that tank. In my test, which I've tested a lot, it actually takes very little filtration to break down ammonia. Most people, we way over-filter. When I was a new hobbyist and I had a 350-gallon tank, I had 3 FX5s on it, I had a 55-gallon sump on it, and I learned that I could go all the way down to the sump, and it was still more than enough. And then I eventually learned that you could use even less than that. Most people don't maximize their filtration anyway. Like, on the intake of any canister filter, you should have a big sponge on it. If you don't, you're missing out on a lot of filtration. Any food that gets sucked up in there is going to rot. Fish and shrimp get sucked up into there. You can grow bacteria on that sponge. When the food gets sucked to it, a fish comes by and eats it. Keeps leaves from getting sucked up in there and rotting. So most people just aren't utilizing what they have, and they just add more. But yes, 8 would be more than enough. I bet you can get away with 2. And I would want, depending on the length of the tank, mostly I'm wanting 2, mostly just keep flow going, not so much the actual filtration capacity. What's the best seller in my store? And would you add moss to some driftwood and sell it? I wouldn't add moss to driftwood and sell it because it would take too much time. If I could buy it that way, yes, I would sell it that way. Best sellers. So if you're looking for something that's sold in mass quantities, it's going to be algae eaters. So bristlenose plecostomus, autosynclus, amano shrimp, narite snails, all those things. They solve problems for people, and people only come to pet stores typically with a problem. Yeah, they might want fish, but they come in and say, oh, I need fish food, that's a problem. Oh, I've got algae, that's a problem. Oh, my fish is doing this, that's a problem. When your fish that you're breeding or something like that can solve some of those problems, that sells a lot of fish. My favorite hang-on back filter, definitely Aqua Clears at the moment. They've been around for a long time. I haven't found one I like better yet. And I like the fact that they don't use cartridges. I don't run them with the carbon. Typically, I replace it with another sponge. Yeah, so I like reusable. Saves the environment, doesn't get rid of all the bacteria, stuff like that. Advice on breeding cory cats. I would tell you, flood them with worms. Like, live blackworms really helps. And so, like, to breed my orange ladies, I'll put a half pound of live blackworms in there, let them feed on it for a week, and then they spawn, usually 2 or 3 days after I feed them. But getting them enough food, I could also do it with Apache, where I feed just like huge blocks of Apache in there, and they feed on it for a day or 2. That'll do it too. But their trigger is tons of food and water changes. I automate the water changes, but a ton of food means we should breed, and that would be my tip for that. And making sure you have old enough fish and enough. You want more males than females. Balloon mollies, like hybrids, I don't mind those. I mean, I'm not, like, don't get me wrong, they're not my favorite, but everyone knows they're modified at least, and I can see there's a market for it, and someone makes money off of it, and there are people that enjoy it, so I can't hate on that. No. So one sponge filter for 100-gallon. No, I mean just one sponge filter, and I could do that all day long. When you go to like the Texas stock centers and stuff, they use an air stone and 1/3 of the tank being gravel, and they grow the bacteria on the gravel, and that's it. We way overestimate how much surface area we need to grow bacteria for the amount of waste we're doing or producing with those fish. And I mean, maybe I'll do some experiments down the road and just prove it to you guys, but you can do way crazy loads. And when you go to fish wholesalers, you'll see like, oh, there's 10,000 neon tetras, 125-gallon tank, one sponge filter. Yeah, they change water, but it will handle it. My favorite size tank, probably a 29-gallon tank, because I think it's the smallest tank that a family or someone could have forever. 29 gallons of water is just enough to get dangerous, breed some things, stuff like that. So, can I briefly talk why CO2 is optional? So CO2 mostly, for most plants, just speeds up their growth rate. There are a few plants that won't grow at all without it, but for most people come into a store and they go, I want to plant a tank and I want it to look beautiful. They don't necessarily know that it has to be super hard to grow plants. They just want it to look beautiful, and they assume CO2 makes that happen. CO2 makes that happen faster, but faster to me is not a good thing. And a lot of people say, well, CO2 makes so you don't have allergy problems. Not really. But what a lot of people do is they go from not taking plants very seriously
and they've got a tank and they've got a few plants they're struggling, to I'm going to do plants right. And so I'm going to get a better light. I'm really going to do my fertilizers like I should, and I'm going to put CO2 on there. And then they go, wow, look at this, it's doing so much better. And they say, yep, CO2 and light and fertilizer, all important. Really, what's important is fertilizer and good lighting. And I've got tanks at the store, you know, if you want to come in, or maybe I'll show you guys on video where I run sponge filters in there, it's bubbling, and the plants are still pearling, and then I get to tell you, and I don't inject CO2. So when lighting and fertilizer is dialed in really good, plants will still pearl, even with you gassing off the CO2. So, and it's not a trick where I just change water or anything like that and make all the plants pearl up. No, you can come in any day, we'll show it to you. And so while CO2 is a good thing and can be very, very beneficial, I don't think it's needed. And so people talk about CO2 like it's a requirement. I don't feel it's a requirement. I feel that it is a bonus or a good thing that you might want. Do I pick up or deliver fish to local breeders when you drive long in business? I do. So you'll see a video coming out in the future of me talking about how to run a maintenance cleaning business. And sometimes, like, I will go clean a fish tank and then deliver $500 of fish to a store and then pick up fish from another breeder all in the same way because it sent me to that part of the state. So yeah, I try to deadhead the least amount possible. So if I'm driving down to the airport, I would love it if I could sell something to someone. Most times I can't because I go there so often. But if I'm going, if I was going to go to the other side of the mountains, I would find some way to bring fish, sell something, make it so that I'm furthering things for me and some other party. You know, like, oh, I've got way too many of these. Let me deliver them to you over there. You can sell them over there. So, let's see here. Well, I wouldn't be doing anything more profitable today. I'd be working in the fish room, and I'd be doing another fish room update. So one might not happen this week because on Thursday I got to clean a fish tank. I've got to meet with my builder. I've got to maybe pick up that shipment from the Amazon, and that's not going to leave a lot of... and I've got my mom coming over to have a doggy play date. To, you know, if you guys have been following my Facebook, you know that Wincy, my rescue dog, is super scared, and we're trying to get her more and more out. We got her to go on her first walk yesterday. So I've got all those things lined up for Thursday, and I'm doing this today. We'll see. I think what I'm going to do after this, I'm going to grab some lunch because I haven't eaten yet today, and it's 1 o'clock. And then I'm probably going to play outside with some of those ponds and stuff and make some video there, and maybe I'll tie that into In the Fish Room series. I don't know. I apologize if anyone's having lag. I think it's isolated to different people's connections. Hey, thanks for moderating, Stefan, and we'll see you in the next one. I appreciate that, buddy. Hopefully, I'm going to get things dialed in more when I do this more. This is the first time, and if it's going okay, I'm going to call that a success because it could be a train wreck. What fish do you recommend in a 47-gallon aquarium? That's the question I get asked all the time. It's very difficult. It's way easier if you say, I have this and this fish, what can go with it? But right now you have a blank slate. And so I'd have to ask you, well, what do you like? What do you want? Do you want to breed fish? Do you want to focus on plants? Things like that. It's a real hard thing. I believe that you don't believe me, Iowa, but at the same time, all I can say is that I've interacted with probably, like on a daily basis, I interact with a few hundred tanks, and I've interacted at some points at 500 to 600 tanks all at one time, and I've learned what you can accomplish with a sponge filter. But like for me, I've never once in my hobby ever, except for one time, had it where I didn't have enough filtration for a tank, ever. One time when I had 400 koi in 100 gallons of water, it wasn't enough. But every other time, it's either been A, the tank wasn't mature enough and didn't have enough beneficial bacteria, or it was good enough. So I know what I've seen and what I trust my money to, and I'm not here to tell you, only keep one sponge filter in there. I'm just telling you it can be done. I'm not telling you should, and yes, the system is less stable with only one sponge filter, but it can totally be done. For instance, like out in ponds, like my 100-gallon ponds, I only run one sponge filter, and when I bring in the white clouds at the end of the year, there might be 1,300 of them, and they were all living off one sponge filter. And yes, there's bacteria on the sponges, there's bacteria on the plants, there's bacteria on the sidewalls, all those things. So I just know what I've seen, and I'm not here to tell you you're wrong. I just know what I've seen and what I can do. Can I make a fish for profit video highlighting stories where breeders were taken advantage of by store owners? Maybe. I mean, I don't know, because I don't know. I'm afraid I wouldn't name the stores, and then I'm not sure that it's always bad. Like, a lot of times it's the breeder's fault, but it's also the fault of the store, and sometimes it's just miscommunication. So, if I run into someone that's got a really bad story, maybe I'll film it, but I can't think of any that make for good content off the top of my head. So you've been shopping for some new lights for your planted tanks, but there's so many to choose from. So how or what do I really look for, and wouldn't be spending more money than I actually need to? That's hard. So first, identify like what size tank you have, and then hopefully you can look at like my par rating videos, and then you can figure out what plants you want to grow. So let's say you just want medium to high light, or you want low to medium light, and it's a 55-gallon aquarium. I would say throw a Phoenix 24/7 on it, or the Planted Plus, or maybe the current Planted Plus Pro, or one of the Hagen, or not Hagen, Fluval lights. Any of those would do it. But in general, look for something that's got a light output to dollar ratio. Like, if you're unsure what to do, maybe for your tank you buy one Phoenix Stingray light, and you see how that goes, and then if you decide, oh man, I need more light, throw another one on there. So like on a 55-gallon tank, it's $75 for that 4-footer, and you go, oh, it's not enough. You throw another one on there, it costs you $150. Well, the 24/7 would have cost you $150, or the current light would have cost you more than that, or the Hagen light or Fluval light would have cost you more than that. But you can step your way up too, and people assume they need insane amounts of light, but the reality is you just need to match nutrients to the amount of light you have. Because people say, well, I can't grow this Amazon sword under the amount of light that I have right now. Realize we grew it 30 years ago under T12 lighting that was horrible. And so it's not that the lighting you have isn't strong enough. It's probably that your environment isn't going well enough to make it thrive. So let's see here. Yeah, so if you should be checking out the chat and stuff like that. A lot of the guys that are in here have their own channels. They're smaller channels. They give out lots of good advice. Yeah, they support me. I support them. But, check out other people's channels and things, because everyone's here just to help each other. So let's see here. Look for some more questions. What fish do you recommend with discus? And is my 47 big enough? In my opinion, if you kept one discus, you could keep it in the 47. Otherwise, I recommend 75 gallons or more, because discus should be kept in groups of 6 or more. Ideally, buying a group of 10 and culling down to a group of about 6, where you've got 1 or 2 males and 4 or 5 females. And fish that do well with discus, assuming you're keeping them at a higher temperature, tend to be cardinal tetras, stir-by corridoras. Recently, some customers have been having good luck with lemon tetras. And then plants, things like Bacopa and Microsword and stuff like that tend to do okay as well. But it's a lot of trial and error for what works for one person doesn't work for the next. But in my opinion, 47 is too small unless you had a breeding pair that you already knew was a proven pair, or you were keeping just one. You'll end up stunting them or running into some water quality issues to keep them fed. And like at the tank at the store, everything auto water changes 4 times a day at the store, but I also do another 25% in addition to that to keep up with them, and they're in a 55. So let's see here. So is a black goldfish a good start? I think I'm missing some of the chat there where we're probably talking between other people, but they're definitely a hardy enough fish. Fish room horror stories. Like my old Mabu puffer once ate my favorite eel on accident. That was horrible. So I'd been looking for a Tanganyika ellipsifer eel for a long time, because they don't get retardedly big. They stay more slender. I love the markings on them, and they like to eat worms and things like that. And I think it set me back about $120. I'd had it for a month and a half or so. And the Mabu puffers are real laid back. They never really intentionally eat anything. It was an accident. So I put in some shrimp into the tank, like cocktail shrimp for the Mabu puffer to eat, and that eel likes it too. And so I drop it in, I sprinkle it around so it's spread out, and it just so happens the eel wanted the same piece of shrimp the Mabu puffer did. And the Mabu puffer at this point was, let's say, 16 inches or something. And they kind of have to look at the food with their side eye and go, okay, there's the food. Then they line up and go and eat it. Well, in that split second, if he sees the food, so does the eel. He comes in, grabs the shrimp. Mabu Puffer takes like a big old bite right out of the back. And no matter what I did with antibacterial meds and stuff like that, because the fish was still alive, I could not save him. And that was, didn't kill my fish or anything, but that was a bad loss because I really wanted that eel. And I still want another one. I haven't picked up another one. I should. My biggest disaster in fish keeping to date, let's see. I'm sure I've been the result of killing some things. I'm just trying to think of something where I was like, wow, that was dumb, straight up dumb. One time I helped a guy move, and we had aeration and stuff like that, and we still lost like all his Romanose tetras, like 100 Romanose tetras. It was horrible, but he didn't. Like, we should have had more supplies, and it had taken way longer. The tank had to go down flights of stairs, and it was moving to a different house, stuff like that. So that one was pretty bad. I feel like one time we killed a bunch of dwarf anchor catfish with the tiniest amount of salt ever. Like, they're so sensitive to salt, and we were unaware that they were that sensitive. So that was horrible to watch those things die with just a tiny amount of salt. I'm sure there's other things too, but with what you said about swords might just be the reason why I have problems. Think I might have to up the ferts as I have high light and CO2. Your swords are just melting. So with sword plants, they're really heavy root feeders, and it's not uncommon to want to stuff like 4 or 5 root tabs underneath that thing. And the bigger they get, they start throwing off babies, and you might have a Amazon sword that's eating 10, 20 root tabs a week, or not a week, a month. So they're really heavy feeders. And that's why sometimes you'll see them doing really well in tanks that are neglected and super old. You're like, how does your Amazon sword look so good and you do nothing? Because they do nothing, there's a lot of detritus in that substrate, and it's fueling that Amazon sword. And that's why they did so well so many years ago, because we didn't like to change lots of water 30 years ago. So that's why they did well. Let's see. PPI for pores per square inch. I like much more coarse sponge filters than I do fine. Yeah, fine pulls more stuff out. They also clog faster. I'm a guy that doesn't want to do maintenance all the time, so I use stuff that's open pore. That's why I like the ATI Pro sponges versus the normals. And even when I custom order stuff from Swiss Tropical or something like that, it would be higher porosity. Thoughts on blue tetras, like the Kobu blue tetra or a different one? Like, let's see here. Favorite fish show on TV? I don't have one. I actually don't have cable. That's not true. I do have cable now, but I haven't hooked up the cable box. Like, to get this connection fast enough to do live streaming, I had to upgrade my connection. I did that a couple months ago. But I haven't had cable in probably 10 years, and I just don't have time. Like, I'll watch stuff online, and Netflix and stuff like that, but the problem is, like, even when I go to my grandma's house, all of a sudden I'm watching Dancing with the Stars, and I hate that show, but somehow I got to see how it ends now, because I've already invested 20 minutes into that stupid thing. So I try not to get sucked into the world of time suck, wasting time. I'd much rather watch a fish tank. So, do I read any aquarium magazines? I used to, and I don't anymore. Every once in a while, this is a total Q&A here. Every once in a while, I'll take a bath and I'll just read a magazine. That gets me away from the internet and Facebook and all the customers and comments, stuff like that. But I currently subscribe to Amazonas, but I typically don't even get a chance to read them. I took like 5 of them that I hadn't read yet to Japan, and I didn't read any. I spent the whole time working. Like, I didn't have any downtime. So I thought, okay, I'll read on the plane. Like, it's 12 hours or more each way, right? I actually was just lining out different things I want to do on YouTube and business, stuff like that, so I never even read them. So, yes, I have a subscription, and every once in a while I'll binge read them, but I don't do it as nearly as much as I used to, just from a time thing. Can a lack of enough substrate in a plant tank cause algae? Maybe. I mean, if you had so little substrates that the plants couldn't get rooted and they were heavy root feeders and they couldn't grow well, technically, but I don't think you'll run into that problem, really. So, let's see here. Where do you buy sponge for DIY sponge filters? SwissTropicals.com. Steve and Tanner kind of imports a lot of sponges, and lots of people use it for the matte filters and things like that. And I would say that's the best place to buy it because you can get it in all different colors, porosities, things like that. Let's see here. Hey, that's you asked the question when I read magazines, and that's what I do. That's my downtime. My downtime is to get away from the internet, because if I'm at the computer, like right now in the corner of my eye, I'm seeing I have Facebook notifications. I'm seeing that I have lots of YouTube comments I haven't responded to, and my brain's always being pulled to that. So if I'm not away from the computer, and that's about the only place I'm away from the computer. I still got a phone, so that way if there's a problem at the store, they can get a hold of me. But it's the only way I can get away. If you ban Allie, I'm gonna have to hear about it when she works on Saturdays. So don't do that. And I didn't give you the code word of throw the monkey wrench at her. Yeah, the Kobu tetras are kind of a light blue tetra, typically wild caught, and it's Cobue, and they're an unsung hero. They got a nice light blue sheen to them. When the light hits them right, they're super beautiful. But in a fish store, a lot of times they don't look that good, and they get a little bit older. And they're a super active tetra. They do better with more like silver tip tetras and things like that. Do I plan on doing any in-store workshops or short classes? I've thought about it. We used to do like a plant swap once a month and things like that. Mostly it's a time thing. And like when we had Lamont and Jessica working for me, we were talking about starting to do some classes, but with them leaving, I got to get more employees to be able to handle that load, because it makes for a long day. We got to schedule it. We got to have people to work it, that type of thing. Best type of Vallisneria, I would say just normal Val. There's a lot of different strains. Most are incorrectly identified. I actually like Dwarf Sagittaria maybe a little bit better than Vallisneria. Have I seen the new ocean-free hydrofilter? It uses a form of electrolysis to convert the ammonia rather than bacteria. I haven't seen that yet. I wonder if it's more like ozone and stuff like that. I just haven't seen it, and I rely on plants mostly. Like water changes and plants to convert ammonia is what I like to use, but how many pygmy cories would I recommend in a 40-gallon? I only have 10 and can't find anyone that sells them here. I would recommend as many as you can afford. Like I had, in a 75-gallon, I had 100 of them, and I had 100 of them and discus, which that's already dumb, but I enjoyed them way more than I enjoyed the discus, so. See, like you'll see in the other videos, I'm complaining about my voice from Japan. Like I'm starting to get hoarse, I talk so much, so now that I've been talking for an hour and 20 minutes, it's starting to set in, I'll be drinking more water here. But the more pygmy cories you have, the more you will love it, trust me. If you think 10 is awesome, 30 of them is way more awesome. So if you can find more or breed those ones, make it happen. Let's see here. Do I have any tips for breeding Ancistrus right now? Make sure you get a cave they like. They like kind of a long, slender cave with an opening just big enough so they can open their fins and no one can get in or out of them. Feed them well, but usually if you have a compatible pair of male and female bristlenose, they just make more whether you want them to or not. If they're not doing that for you and you know they're male and female, they might be a little bit young, or there's not a suitable cave. But even when without a suitable cave, a lot of times they'll start throwing eggs out. So I would say just give it a little bit of time and make sure they have a good enough hide. Let's see here. Yeah, I love pygmy cories. How important is surface adaptation for diffusion? Diffusion of what? Like of CO2 out of the water or getting oxygen back into the water? And I think on Wednesday is finally my video on dissolved oxygen comes out. It took a long time to fill. I actually lost some of the content. I'm an idiot. But most of it's there, and you can see how important an air stone is, even with canister filters, and how bad a canister filter can actually be. Like I think it was down around under 6, which is pretty low for oxygen. At 4, most things die. And at 6, some of the higher oxygen required species die. But yeah, let's see here. Have you seen the new... I've heard about the new Seachem filter. The Seachem rep was in my store on... What's today? Today's Tuesday? It would have been on Friday. He was in my store on Friday and we were talking about it. And I'm actually going to try some of the products because they swear, the rep swore to me that the new Pristine and the new Aqua Vitro line of that bacteria works. And I called BS on him. I said, I've tried so many products. I've had companies have me test products. And I've never once had a liquid gravel vac or bacteria thing actually work. And he swears it does. So I said, you know what? I'm going to try it in a display tank at the store. And if it doesn't do what you say it's going to do, we're going to produce that video. I'm going to call BS on it. And so we're going to get that. And I'm going to try some products out. And yeah, they've got some stuff coming out down the pipeline that I'm interested to see, because Seachem makes pretty decent products. That being said, you know, they're doing live bacteria, and I don't know if that's going to work, because I've never seen it work. How old should the ancestors be to breed? Probably about 12, 14 months old, you know, right in there. The female can be a lot smaller than the male, typically. I bred them in a flower pot too. That was the first time I ever bred them. So I took a flower pot about that big around, about that tall. You soak it in water, and then if you take a pair of pliers where the hole is on the bottom, and you just aug it out, because it's wet and it's like clay, it actually augs out really easy. And you just make the hole bigger, and they'll go down there and spawn, and they can lay against the top and trap it off so no one can get in. They like that too. Yeah. You see a message before he talks about it. Oh, you are liking pretty much there, or pretty bad. Let's see here. So yes, Iowa discus. I tested that exact thing in the video because that's where I started. I had that turtle tank and it was covered in duckweed, and I was getting a very low reading even though I had a sponge filter in there and a canister filter going. I removed the duckweed, put it in a different tank. Before that tank, I tested the oxygen and it was high. And then I tested, a couple days later, I tested the 55. It had gone way up, removing the duckweed, and the tank I put the duckweed into, it went way down. So I was able to prove that duckweed on the surface cutting off, surface transfer, made a huge difference, and you'll get to see that in the video. So maybe too scientific. No, I literally did that experiment already on that. I wanted to make a good video on that. I lost the video of where I was doing a power head with Venturi, putting air in, but what can you do? I don't know how I lost it, but the problem is I make all these videos, right? And they take up lots of storage, and at any one time I might have 5 terabytes of video, and I had to liquidate some, and I was getting ready for Japan. I might have deleted it or something because I want to make sure I had lots of room to store stuff while I was in Japan. In my fish room, is there any reason why you lay the 2x4s instead of standing them up? Okay, I can answer that. I laid them flat because I don't have to build any bracing. When you turn them up on side, you have to use more 2x4s, and you have to actually brace in the center as well, because when they're on their side, instead of wanting to bow like this, which as you see here, they're not bowing, and typically over time they're not going to bow, but what you don't want is them to bow outward either. So if you don't brace in the center, they'll bow outward, and it just takes more time to build it, but it also is going to raise your stacks a little bit higher. And because I have no problem with the way it runs now, and I wanted no tool required setups and teach you guys how to do that, that's the way I did it. And if I had a problem, don't get me wrong, I'll change it, but I've never had a problem using this system, and wholesalers don't either, so I see no reason. Yes, it is stronger, and I don't deny that it would not be stronger, and you can do that if you like, but realize that you should put in lots of ribs to build the strength in there too. Let's see here. See, good difference or bad difference, I'm not sure what that relates to. Do I sell bait? I don't. I don't even sell feeder fish, really. The cheapest fish I sell in my store is a zebra danio at 99 cents, and they get the same mez as everything does in my store, because if you go and feed that to your expensive arowana or peacock bass or stingray or whatever you're going to feed that to, we don't want to get that sick. So I actually sell healthy feeders, but yeah, it costs $1 because I put a lot of medicine into them, and you could also just buy them as a pet, so... let's see here. So has anyone got any more questions? If you asked one I didn't answer it, hit me with it now. Otherwise, maybe this is going, hour and a half. We're pretty long already. Maybe you guys have run out and we need to save, questions for another time. Let's see here. I don't know. I mean, I could do this all day. Well, technically it says my video maxes out at 8 hours. So I don't plan on going that long. I thought about cutting off at a half an hour, but we're already at an hour and a half. And, this is kind of just a Q&A, ask whatever you want session. I think in the future I'll have some structure to it. Like, let's say if I streamed on Thursday, I might say, okay, today we're going to talk about guppies, and that's it. And then that way I can give it a see this. Because right now, if I title and tag it like Q&A session, no one's ever going to type into YouTube like Q&A session and then want to read about or listen to this. So, most expensive fish I have, Most expensive fish I have right now, and I guess we'll go with my personal possession. I don't think I have anything that crazy expensive. I mean, okay, I got some koi in like the $800 range. But like at the store, I would say zebra plecos, like the Mabu puffer. I mean, there's lots of discus and stuff. I'm trying to think of. I think 800 is about the most I've ever spent on a fish so far. Yeah, I mean, I might spend some more. Like once I build a real koi pond, I'll be spending some money. But I gotta save up, you know. Yeah. Let's see. How many gallons is the tank behind me? It's a custom tank, and so it's like 30 inches tall. It's pretty tall, and it's like 5 feet long, and it's I want to say it's 20 inches or 22 inches front to back. When I did the math, I think it was about 180 gallons, and then I have a 29-gallon sump down below. But yeah, it's got overflows. I actually wish it didn't have overflows because I like to feed goldfish floating food. It's much easier to feed them that way. But you know, with the overflows, I need to feed sinking food and stuff. So yeah. Question: other than water changes and live blackworms, what can I do to get Bolivian rams to spawn? Make sure they're getting enough vitamins too. So like maybe a high quality flake or something like that, or soak something with like not Celcon, but like a vitamin thing. Making sure they have physically enough vitamins to spawn is important, as well as just fat. People focus on fat to make eggs, but they also need vitamins. And then try fluctuating the temperature. Keep it cooler for a little while, and then raise that temperature. That will, probably help them spawn as well. How do you pick the right size sponge filter for your aquarium? I have one of my 10-gallon moving Fry 229 soon, but don't know if that sponge filter will be enough. So, if you've got 100 Fry in your 10-gallon and you have a sponge filter and it's handling it, if you move that sponge filter to the 29 and move the 100 fish there, it's the same exact load, so it'll handle it there also. But typically I try to fit the biggest sponge filter in my tank that I can reasonably hide behind a piece of wood or rock or plant, so it doesn't look terrible if it's in a display tank. Like in the tanks out there, I don't care, so I just put things that are manageable to service. But realize that the load in one tank is the same as another tank. So if you have 100 Fry in a 10-gallon tank and you move it to a 1,000-gallon tank, the amount of food you're going to feed is the same amount, and so the same sponge filter would handle it. I might do this pretty frequently. I don't know if I'll always do it like on a Tuesday, but maybe I'll come home from work some days and just be like, yeah, we're doing it. Or I get Lamont in here, we're like, we're doing a live real fish talk, let's do this. But I'm enjoying this format because this, like whether I talked about, let's say, breeding fish for profit for an hour and film this, or I can do it where I'm talking about this and you guys ask questions, I think that's just a better format. So we'll see how it goes, and we'll see how time allows. We'll see if the equipment works well and that, things like that. But yeah. Have you ever tried the Wallstad method? Totally have. I actually have signed copies of her book, and I like her method if you know exactly how you want the plants to be planted. If you got to remove them, it bombs the tank. But I do like her method. I do believe that there is plant allelopathy where they fight with each other. I do believe that soil carries a lot more types of bacteria than we typically have in an aquarium. People say that she's crazy because she talks about not doing water changes, but I kind of agree about that, where really we only need to take water out when we're building up in something in excess. And so, if I didn't have auto water change, I was a very lazy fish keeper in the fact that, like, let's say when I breed crystal shrimp, like when I was doing it at my old house, and there might be videos on my channel about that, but I would only change the water once a year. And people go, oh, you're insane, like they're going to die. Like, no, they made lots of crystal shrimp actually. So it's all about managing waste and things like that. So I do like her method, and I don't recommend it to new people. And if you don't know how to do plants and you go, oh, I didn't realize the sword was going to get this big. Like, if it's in the front of your tank, it's going to be terrible. But it's something you can play with, yeah. Make some stuff about paludariums. I've tried paludariums about 3 different times, and where I go wrong is I get lazy. I think I need a custom background. I want the waterfall and all that kind of stuff, and I am super intrigued by it. In fact, the tank that's in my living room, I almost had built where it's only 18 inches of water but 4 feet tall, so I could build an entire background of plants on there, but I was afraid I wouldn't have the time, and it would be a big learning process because I don't know how much misting is this plant going to need and stuff like that. So, but I at some point I probably will dabble in that because I find it interesting, just like aquaponics and things like that as well. Am I selling my magical guppy food? I should be. It works out well. I'm still feeding it. Like I fed it last night. I love that food. I just haven't packaged it and gotten it out there yet. And that's the biggest thing for me is you guys are ordering stuff online, which I love and I thank you for. But getting new products on there is kind of hard for me, and I should be doing it. And I'm hoping when I get Allie working more in the store that we will be doing some more of that stuff. And I might even need to hire another person to get that accomplished. But yes, I do like that food. It's Michael. It's called the Wallstad method, and it's just Diana Wallstad. And her method is using soil under the gravel. And yeah, you've seen it done with Dustin's fish tanks and stuff like that. But I would say she kind of pioneered it. She has the research on it. The book is kind of like a science textbook, so it's real technical, but it's a good book. Am I and Lamont ever going to eat the old fish food? Maybe. Maybe I will do it. Lamont won't. Lamont, he didn't want to do it that time on video anyway, and so I might still. I saw the tank sitting on my living room, or not my living room, my dining room counter. I need to move it, but there is a chance I'll do it, yeah. My favorite African cichlid, probably Demasoni. Just because it's the first thing I ever bred and also the first thing I ever killed. Like, that's a good fish room disaster. Like, I had this 100-gallon African tank, acrylic. It was a second tank, so I had a 65 community tank, and then I made this 100-gallon African tank. And I was going to breed African cichlids. I was going to be that African cichlid breeder. And so I was power feeding these things to grow them up and start breeding them. And they started breeding and making fry. And I killed them all with Malawi bloat. I was feeding them bloodworms, all kinds of stuff. Like, I was thinking, like, I know more than the internet. Like, I'll do water changes every day and stuff like that. But, boom, killed them all. And so then I had to set up a tank years later, and I spawned them again and bred the crap out of them just to prove that I could do it without killing them. And I still just like that fish. And I've met Leif de Masoni at Old World Exotics, where the fish is named after him. And I got to see him in ponds, and it was awesome. But yeah, that's probably my favorite African. I mean, I like a lot of them. I own shelldwellers.com. If you guys don't know that, I own shelldwellers.com. I like shelldwellers a lot. So yeah. Fluidized filters filled with sand versus plastic media. I like the plastic media better just because it's easier to control. The sand, if your pump clogs up a little bit or it's off a little bit, you spit a lot of sand in the tank. And I think Joey covered that as well, and he has the same sentiments. It's harder to dial in a sand one than plastic media. What do I feed my plecos? I actually feed them, not this, like this is, I feed them a Sarah food that's got wood in it, and it's got a willow bark and stuff like that in it, and I'll do a review on it someday. I actually like that food quite a bit, but I feed them that, I feed them Rapashi, and they actually get some of that miracle guppy food and flakes and stuff like that, but, and lots of green beans. Not so much here, but at the store we feed a lot of green beans. Any other favorite guppy besides red Russian lace? Oh yes, I actually love spade tail, round tail, pintail guppies, but they never sell. And so when I make them, it doesn't do me any good. And sometimes I keep them every once in a while just because I like them. But yeah, there's a lot. I bred a lot of black Moscow guppies. I enjoyed them for quite a long time. I've bred a lot of guppies, and that first fish room I had where I had 50 tanks, it was all guppies, and I really got into them. But in general, like a favorite guppy is, I like just an assorted guppy because it creates a rainbow every time and everyone can enjoy it, and each one is kind of different. So, let's see here. I used to breed crystal shrimp. Yeah, I don't anymore just because when I bring them in the store, people just kill them and it's kind of sad, like it's never fun when you breed something and then you get to hear about how it died. Like even though the customer didn't mean to do it, they just had a very high mortality rate because most people aren't keeping them at a low enough pH and the correct hardness, and the mentality is like, well, I've got cherry shrimp coming out of my ear, so clearly I'm going to be good with crystal shrimp, right? Well, that's not the case, but yeah. So yeah, part of the problem with like pelletariums is like in my house I don't control the humidity, but in here and at the store I have lots of dehumidifiers going, so I dry stuff out a lot. So yeah, I should do like a big Wardley's fish food giveaway just to troll everyone. We'll see you later, Danny. Thanks for hanging out. When it comes to plants pearling, should I be worried that I don't see plants pearling? They're growing great, but I see no pearling. Plants like Rotala and Anacris. No, that's the biggest thing here. If your plants are doing what you want them to do, don't worry about what people tell you they should be doing. Now, if you were having a problem with the plant, or you really wanted to see pearling, like, oh, I really want this to happen, then work on it. But don't focus on well, the CO2 meter says it's not right, or this guy says it's not doing it right. If you're getting the effect you want, you've got the holy grail. It's growing the way you want it. It looks good, and you're happy. Boom, accomplished. Don't worry about what other people say. So I would say don't worry about it unless you want to worry about it. Do I have any tips on breeding Africans? Tried running 30% low for a week, once a week with a water change, and they just swim and eat. So they might not be old enough yet, but typically, once they're old enough, they'll spawn quite a bit. Like they should, like most of my females would get skinny if I didn't pull them from breeding too much. And I would say most people don't feed their Africans enough protein, and I get it. I just told you I kill a lot of Africans with protein, but like when I breed Tropheus, I feed them high protein foods, not spirulina and stuff like that. So realize they gotta have enough protein to actually make eggs and things like that. But don't overfeed. Most people overfeed, and that's the problem. Fish get bloated from overfeeding, not so much the quality of food. But someone asked me about the maintenance business video. I've already made it. It's one of those ones where I'm driving in the car, and that'll be coming out soon. So it's already there. I just have to tag, title, and get it ready to go and scheduled to come out. Am I going to do that undergravel spray bar idea? Yes, if you keep reminding me, Russell, because I keep forgetting how awesome that was, and I haven't done it yet. Do I use fruit flies as food? I don't, because even when I get the wingless cultures and stuff like that, or the ones that can't fly, they end up crawling up and out of the tank, and then my wife gets pissed. And then I've had like people at the store going like, "Why are all these bugs here?" And it's like, well, they're for the fish, you know. So I don't feed them that often. Let's see. What kind of sword is mine? It has some oriental leaves and some red ruby swords. It's one plant. I'm confused. I would say post it up to like, let's say Tank Talk or something like that, one of the forums at KD Tropicals, and someone will identify it for you probably. Let's see here. Let's see. With the fly cultures, I do dump them in, but a lot of times they'll get up on water lettuce and stuff and find their way out of the tank. Like I can't get them to drown fast enough, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, bettas, killies, lots of rainbow fish, stuff like that, love it, but there always ends up being some outside the tank. Well, don't worry, Danny. Like, if you want to cut out now, like, it's been going for about an hour and 40 minutes, so when you come back, like, tomorrow when you wake up, just come to this video. It'll be here. It'll be on my channel, and just fast forward to an hour and 40 minutes. You can watch what you missed if you want to go to bed. But I don't know. I mean, we could take this. Maybe I'll cut it off at the 2-hour mark, which is insane. Like, I already apologize. Like, so that means 19 more minutes. We got 19 more minutes before I cut this thing, and everyone makes fun of me for, you know, running it too long anyway. Fish that go good with German blue rams, I would say things like cardinals, stuff that can handle the higher temperature they want, and they're good dithers. They're going to be kind of low in the tank. You want stuff up above, and it helps keep them distracted from fighting. Let's see here. Minimum tank size for a betta, in my opinion, is 5.5 gallons. Under that, I find most people can't keep water quality good or well enough, and I'm not going to say it can't be done, but really we should be heating the water. Usually I want to keep them in a community tank, not by themselves. I want to do live plants, and 5 gallons is about the minimum that most people have success. I still think it's too much work, so I would do it in like a 10 or a 20 gallon with other fish, but that's just me. Yeah, 2.5 gallons, it can be done, but I find it hard to keep it heated. Current #1 seller in my store, I'd have to pull up the data, but for a long time it was Amano shrimp. I sell an insane amount of Amano shrimp. And then, there's lots of cardinals and rummy nose tetras and things like that too. Beamworks LED in a planted tank. Yes, I have had some experience with that. It was a really old fixture though. It used like 150 watts of energy. I didn't like the way that it displayed the light. It was real spotty, but it worked. It'll grow. Yeah, and actually, so because so many people requested, I ordered 3 different Beamworks lights to do the par tests on, so that'll be coming. I have to check my phone on the live stream here, just because I got a text, and it could be my store, and like for all I know, it could be on fire or something. Nope, it's just my wife. So my wife says she got me potato soup that I love from her work, and she'll bring it home for dinner. So now, a day in the life of, I already got dinner planned out. And that's the thing. It's not that people can't do bettas in a smaller container. It's that I'm always trying to give advice for the public. And so if most betta keepers that I interact with, they've never kept a betta before. And so or never kept a fish before, and so them managing water quality in such a small space is very difficult and more. So that's why I try and always at least 5 gallons. And I try to get people in 10 gallons because a 10-gallon tank is actually cheaper than a 5.5 gallon. So if my tank had 0 KH and GH, what fish would you decide to breed? Everything I've got in my fish room, because I come out that way. I have nothing in my water. It's like when I test it with a TDS meter, it's essentially RO water. It's about 23 TDS, which is, like RO water would be like 5. It's really close. And so that's why I run crushed coral in every one of my tanks to buffer that up. And then I can add hardness if I need to, but typically even snails and all that kind of stuff and Africans will all thrive in that as long as I add crushed coral. So that's what I do. And so I would say I would much, I used to want really hard water because I like live bears, but it is easier having soft water. I can take it hard, where taking hard water soft is hard. Let's see here. When do I switch from starter food to regular pellet food? So we're talking about peacocks. I would say like a micro pellet or something like that, or flake. You could be feeding them that now. And actually, like a lot of the commercial farms, they put big pellets in and they let the fry just feed off of it. And it's because you can just take one pellet out at the end of the night if they haven't finished eating, but they get to eat all day long. So you could try some bigger pellets now, and they might have to be sinking if the fry aren't bold enough to come out and eat, at the top. But yeah, give it a try. Like a lot of algae wafers and stuff like that work really good for feeding fry, and they can just sit at it and eat it, and rapashi as well. Let's see here. Oh, I love potato soup too. Don't get me wrong. Ooh, potato soup. I'm already excited. So, speaking of bettas, how would someone baffle a submerged filter to avoid their betta from being battered by the current? The easiest way to do that is take like a tiny piece of sponge, cut a slit in it, and put it over the output. It'll diffuse it. So it's kind of like it's trying to like breathe through your shirt. The minute you try and breathe through your shirt, it's a lot harder, and that resistance is going to do the same thing with a sponge. So that's the easiest way. And if you use a black piece of sponge, it kind of blends in. So you've got 2 medium-sized Amazon swords. When I got them from the local fish store, they look great. Now they're in my tank and leaves are yellowing. I have Miracle Grow dirt with clay balls in there. Why? Yellowing is typically, so it could be 2 things going on here. Either A, the plant was grown immersed at the farm, which most plants are, and if the leaf is whiter, that's an immersed grown leaf, and it's going to die back and make new leaves. Or if it's yellowing and it's a normal leaf, it's actually just not getting enough nitrogen. You might have to dose it or put some root tabs under there. But it's one of those 2 scenarios, and if it's a new plant from the store, I would say it's probably more likely that it's the old immersed grown leaves dying and new skinnier leaves coming up, and they'll be the new growth, and you shouldn't have that problem much longer. Let's see, who else? Got 13 minutes. Yep, shrimp and snails do love Toms. It's it's a cheap, easy way to get it. Do I ship to Europe? I don't even ship to the U.S. at this point. I could make a lot of money, but I can't get the fish. Like, I'm already selling out of fish at the store, and that's the problem I run into. So as much as I would love to ship some stuff. In fact, I think I am shipping one thing to one person. They really begged me for some of those Liberty Mollies, and he wanted them so bad, I was willing to do anything for them. And I've been in that situation, and I go, you know what? I will do this because I've been in this situation where I paid a guy once $200 for some blue platies that I didn't even have a picture of. But, so I've been desperate before. Well, thanks for watching, Hard Buddy. I mean, yeah, I wish I could do kind of wireless setup, like if I could make this wireless and walk around my fish room, that'd be fun too, which I know I can do that with a phone and stuff, but I gotta do it on Facebook, and I want to do it on YouTube. That's where my people are, right? Let's see here. Shipping to Europe is hard. It usually requires an airport, and you got to become a known shipper, and you got to pull certificates and stuff. So, unlikely that I'll be shipping to foreign countries. Might start shipping in the U.S. How old am I, and how old is my business? This is gonna sound really dumb, but I think I'm 33. The reason is I never know. My wife always knows. I think I'm 33. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. My business is about 4 years old at this point. Yeah, I think so. Like, technically, I signed my lease like 2 days before Christmas, like 4 years ago or something. But I've been open to the public a little over 3 years. Why don't I sell the Paradigm foods? mostly because they have problems filling. So, like, I used to sell the food in the store, but most often they couldn't fill my order, or they would only fill part of it and stuff like that. And I don't have time to track down, products, right? So, like, it's like I ordered it and you should have shipped it to me, and then you didn't. And then, like, there was also a snafu where they claimed I didn't pay them, and I was able to prove that I did, and things like that. And so it just didn't work out. So that's why I don't sell it anymore. But yeah. Let's see. What do I do with female guppies? Typically, I use them to breed. Like, I keep a lot of them at home. But for any of the stuff like red deltas and things like that, I sell them as pairs. But otherwise, I convince people that they should breed guppies because it's fun, and they need females. And so sometimes you actually don't have enough females because you get a few breeders or a few people that want to breed them come through, and they buy 1 male and 5 females. I'd take a hamburger right now too, actually. Alexander. We're on the same page. I'm hungry. What was your biggest used fish tank steal? Probably one of the stores I bought. So all the tanks in my store, or most of them on the big wall, I bought all those tanks at 50 cents a gallon, and then I didn't have to pay, there was no sales tax on that, or at least I didn't get charged sales tax. That gentleman should have paid the sales tax. And so I bought all of those, and there's a lot of stuff that got thrown in, like a freezer, and one of the air pumps that I use, like the blower that I use to run my solar hot air collector, all that kind of stuff. And I want to say that was only like an $800 one. I bought another fish room one time. The guy set it all up, hurt his back, decided he wasn't going to do the fish room anymore, so it's all brand new tanks, and it was like 50 cents a gallon also. But yeah, that's usually, the beginning, I was horrible at buying used stuff. I would buy stuff and it would leak, and you really got to learn how to buy used stuff because you can lose a lot. You like that answer? I mean, I'm pretty sure that's how you know when you're starting to get old, when you can't remember how old you are, Iowa. So yeah, I don't know anymore. Time flies for me. I mean, I feel like I just got into fish. I tell people all the time, I haven't been into fish that long. I've owned a store, so I think I've only been into fish for 10 years. But it's been the most intense years I think anyone's ever experienced with fish. I got into fish, and then within 6 months, I quit my job and went to work at a fish store for 5 years. And then I decided I was opening my own store. Now I've been open for 4 years. So it's been 10 years. But, anyone that's worked at a fish store knows you learn so much every day compared to being a hobbyist that go work at a store for a year, you'll know more than you know up until this point in your life. So, let's see here. What do I do with a chip in the corner of my glass tank? If it hasn't hit the silicone, just rock it. I've got one tank in my store, 75 gallons, got a chip. I chipped it while installing it when I was installing a store. I was an idiot. But just use it, and realize that, yeah, it could compromise it, but if it's not into the silicone, it's probably okay. That being said, my official answer is go buy a new tank and don't believe a word I say, because if it gives away, I don't want you to be pissed at me, but I would totally just use it and rock it. Let's see here. Go ahead and pay attention to the comments, because you can watch this video 10 times over, buddy. This is exactly what I want to happen. I want the community to build. When you guys answer each other's questions, stuff like that, in comments, that's awesome. And that's, I want to build a community where everyone's trying to help each other, and not, how many communities have you been out there where it's just people yelling at each other? You're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. You're not doing it right. You can't mix that. That doesn't help anyone. So, can bichers go in an African tank? Totally. They want a little more protein, but there's a lot of African bichers as well, and I've kept them, and I've done well with them. Now, yeah, will they prey on some of the fry and stuff? Yeah, but that might be a good thing, so you don't overpopulate your tank. So I would do it. Okay, and a huge question I've had since watching you: why didn't you build a fish room then buy a building, then transport racks so you can have all livestock in a week or two? So let me read that again. Why didn't you build a fish room, then buy a building? So build a fish room, then buy a building, then transport the racks. So rack by rack, so I can have all. Okay, yeah. So the problem was, I had my fish room. Then we moved because my wife got promoted and worked an hour away from where we were living. Or actually, it's more than that. So we moved to the halfway point. So I moved about 45 minutes from my store. And it just so happened she got promoted and I was opening my store at the same time. So we lived there at the halfway point for about a year while we shopped for a house. And that place wasn't really set up, and I didn't want to move everything multiple times knowing that I'm going to have to keep moving it, because when you move stuff, you break it, and the fish room there would have been out in a garage in a different building, and it didn't have water to it, and it didn't have all these things, and I knew I was just going to kill a lot of that stock. So now that's why I'm having to replace all my stock, and I'm rebuilding now. Plus, now that I own a store and I've got more resources and things like that, I get to build the way I want. And I've built a fish room about 4 times now. Every time you build a fish room, your next fish room is better. So usually you don't want to bring what you've built. You want to go, oh, I learned what I did. Now I want to build something better this time. So we've got about 6 minutes left. Let's fire off. Are blue cobra guppies with orange tails rare? I've been told so. Think about breeding some. Probably. I mean, if I saw a picture, I could tell you. If it looks awesome, breed it. If you think it's awesome, someone else thinks it's awesome, they'll buy it from you. So it sounds good. Is the Eheim auto feeder worth the money? Definitely. I use tons of them. In my opinion, every other small feeder is terrible. Terribad. It's bad, bad, bad. I've had them stick on. I've had them kill stuff. I'm testing out pond feeders and stuff for some of my ponds, but in my opinion, if you're buying an auto feeder for a tank, there is no option besides the Eheim auto feeder. Even the other Eheim feeders I don't like. To be fair, I haven't tested enough of the Hydor heater or the Hydor feeder, so maybe it's okay. But for me, whenever I find a product that works really well, I don't have a reason to test other products. Like when I know like this thing does everything I need to do and more, perfect. I'll just use these. Yeah, I don't like the price, but I love the way it works. How do we tell if driftwood is pine? I have no idea. People ask me all the time, like, can I use this wood? I tell people, Google it and identify the wood, and then you can know. Do the Vienna... They do, yeah. I used to breed the Vienna emerald guppies. They kind of got that leer tail to them. And another store, and he might even still have them, Aquarium Zen. We kind of were close breeding guppies, and we kind of fell out or whatever. But he might still have some. But yes, they do exist. And I believe Philip Shattuck, which he's a guppy guy and kind of did some books and stuff, he distributed them for a while. So they're out there. I'm sure I could track them down. I just wasn't that into them. But it was kind of cool to have an heirloom strain of guppies, if you will. Let's see here. Can plecos go with Africans? Yeah, I typically do bristlenose. They can get away from big common plecos. Usually can't get into crevices and hide, and usually that doesn't work out. But bristlenose plecos tend to work okay. Are tiger angelfish worth importing and breeding? I haven't seen them really to know. So I would say do your research and ask like a bunch of people, like show them the picture and go, does this thing look awesome? And if they go yes, then it's worth it. If they go, yeah, it's an angelfish, and they don't realize how cool it is, it's not worth it. Did you ever decide on what fish? I haven't. I'm still struggling with what fish are going to go in my tank in there. I want to set up the Eheim filter, and I'll go from there. But it still changes, and that's, I feel like it's got to be something super cool. Like I could do stingrays, I could do a planet tank, the problem is I can do anything I want and spend almost any amount of money I want, and it's a tax write-off, and it's all those things, and so I can't decide, and I'm afraid once I get it, I'll be like, dang it, why didn't I do that? So I just haven't decided yet. I'm glad you're enjoying it, Phil. Hopefully we do it more often, and, it might not always be this long. I don't know about that, but, I'm enjoying it. I used to be Mr. monster fish tank guy. Like I had big Pangasius, I've done giraffe cats, Niger catfish, fire eels, big clown loaches. I still do bamboo puffers. I never dabbled in the peacock bass. I don't like fish that just beat on other fish, like just for the sake of beating on one, and they tend to do that. And also arowanas. I've had big knives. I've never been into stingrays much just because I think everyone thinks, oh man, those look cool, but they're not that cool when you actually own them. They're not that interesting to me, personally. How do you respond to someone in chat? I think you just got to type it out there, and I don't think you can specifically talk to someone, but maybe say like, hey Michael, here's my thoughts on this, or something like that. I don't know. So getting rid of duckweed, I've got a video on using a shop vac to do it. Using a little goldfish, they're really good because, like in a planted tank, let's say you've got a bunch of plants and you get a little goldfish about this big, he can eat duckweed, but he can't be too destructive on the plants, and just make sure he's super healthy before you introduce him, and that's a good tip. And I keep trying to film that, and it never comes out right, but I do love using small goldfish to do it. Let's see here. I've thought about doing just big fish in that tank in the living room. The problem is it doesn't auto water change, and it takes a while to change water, and I already know I don't really have a lot of time, and the worst thing I could do would be like, check out all these cool fish, and then I chime back in like, check it out how I'm killing them by not giving them enough attention. So I want to make sure it can be sustainable in there, and the best thing you can do with your hobby is be real with who you are. If you know you're going to be lazy, set the tank up so it can, do well and thrive while being lazy, instead of going, I want this super cool fish, and then I'm going to abuse it. So I just know I'm going to be lazy there, and if I put in a drain or something like that in my house, sure. Or if I move that tank out here, sure, I could put some wicked cool stuff in it. But in that spot, in that location, I'm not sure what I want to do yet. If I was going to do discus and pygmy cories, it'd be the Hestatus cories I got over there. I do want to breed those. And in theory, this is in theory. In theory, I'm importing tons of Hestatus and Hasbrosus cories. If Hestatus actually show up, I might flood that tank with Hestatus cories. That could happen. But we'll see on Thursday. Yeah, peacock bass are cichlids, but there are cichlids that beat on stuff just to beat on it. Like a doveye will just go beat on a fish to beat on it. Whereas like an angelfish beats on something over territory and things like that, and we can actually work with that. But when a fish is just aggressive just for the sake of being aggressive on a fish, that's really hard to curb that behavior, and I just don't enjoy that. When it's something I can fix, like, oh, it's territory or something like that, yeah. Oh my god, it's 2 o'clock. We need to wrap this up. Next live show, I'm not sure when it's going to happen yet. If you're subscribed, what you should be, you should get a little notification going, hey, he's going live some other day. That being said, I could totally go live later tonight or maybe another day. Answering Michael's question real quick, when's the QT video coming out? I don't know. It's all filmed. I've got it all uploaded. I just have to give it descriptions, tags, things like that. And maybe next week, maybe this week. I'm not sure yet. Yeah. So, well, thanks for everyone who chimed in and watched. This was a great experiment. Sorry for the beginning. It was a little rocky there. Hopefully it went well. If you have any comments that you want to add to this, go ahead and add, like, anything I can do to improve, like, was the audio bad, was the video bad, did I look stupid, all those kinds of things. And yeah, generally just chime in, people will answer, I'll answer, and I'll try and hit some of these other questions in post video. Like someone asked about a big air pump, go to gemco.com, buy linear air piston air pumps. And best way to get rid of pond snails, loaches, yeah, those could work. You could also use copper if you don't want to run anything in there. But yeah, goldfish will also eat small snails. But thanks for watching, guys. We're going to see you in the next one. And yeah, I got nothing else to say besides thank you. So let me end this stream, and yeah.